Usually, when we talk about a diagnosis, there's this expectation of, like, absolute precision.
Oh, right. Like it's completely measurable.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like engineering, Like,
hmm
you break your arm, the X-ray shows that jagged white line, and the doctor just points at the film and says, well, there it is.
It's binary. And honestly, profoundly comforting. We inherently want complex problems to just be visible.
Right. We want to put them in neat little boxes we can just look at and fix.
Exactly. But the second you step into the world of human psychology, it changes entirely.
Oh, it's a completely different game.
Yeah.
When you get into the mechanics of modern relationships and emotional trauma, that X-ray machine is just, it's completely useless.
Right, because we're looking at a diagnostic landscape that is entirely murky. You can't just take an MRI of a performative mask.
Yeah, and you definitely can't photograph
Mm.
a fractured sense of self, which is why diagnosing the human condition requires a totally different kind of imaging.
Exactly. We have to look at the artifacts people create, the art, the language, the expressions of their internal state. That's how we map out those fractures.
And navigating that really complicated, deeply uncomfortable space, that is our mission today. So welcome to the deep dive.
Thanks. I'm really excited to dig into this one.
Me too. We are doing a full microscopic breakdown of a piece of music today, specifically the song Lustral by the artist aeur.
And we really have a massive stack of source material on the table for this.
We do. We're synthesizing the official lyrics, a comprehensive thematic analysis of the overall meaning, and a really granular line-by-line breakdown.
But we should probably be clear right up front. This is not a simple song review.
No, definitely not. We aren't going to talk about, like, chord progressions or studio production or anything like that.
Right. The core thesis across all these materials points to a really profound examination of how societal expectations force us into these performative roles.
Yeah, it's about the psychology of it. We're dissecting the incredibly exhausting duality of love and desire.
Exactly. And looking at how the pursuit of conditional affection, love with strings attached, breeds this really specific kind of internal turmoil.
So keeping all that in mind, let's unpack this right from the very first frame. The foundation of this performative self hits you immediately in the opening lines.
Right. It establishes the baseline right away.
Yeah, we get this image of immense directed effort. The lyrics are, she works so hard to be that star, fake your smile for a little while.
And the sheer magnitude of the effort there is really what stands out in our analysis.
Because it says she works so hard.
Right. This isn't just a casual endeavor or some fleeting thought. The text breakdown emphasizes that she is dedicating intense, almost metabolic energy toward achieving this goal.
And the goal is to be that star. But, man, what does that actually look like in the real world?
Well, we have to look at what being a star actually means in the psychological context of a modern relationship.
Okay, so like being the center of attention.
Partially, yeah. It's about reaching a level of recognition that is just undeniable. It represents the pursuit of outward success or extreme romantic desirability.
So it's about becoming the absolute ideal version of yourself, but specifically for someone else's consumption.
Exactly.
It makes me think of, like, curating a flawless social media profile or a really polished online dating persona.
Yeah.
You have to be that star to even get noticed.
That's a perfect analogy. You are actively, constantly working to make yourself palatable. You want to shine so that you are undeniably chosen.
But the crucial part, and honestly where the text gets incredibly dark,
Yeah.
is that this pursuit comes at the direct expense of genuine emotion.
And that brings us directly to the phrase, fake your smile.
Yeah, which is just so bleak.
It is. The breakdown we are looking at zeroes in on this as the ultimate manifestation of the struggle. It's the tension between societal expectations and your own personal truth.
Because the singer is literally forced to conceal their actual feelings behind this mask.
Right. And if we dig into the actual mechanism of that, in behavioral psychology, there's a difference between deep acting and surface acting.
Oh, wait, really? I've never heard of that. What's the difference?
So deep acting is where you actually try to change your internal emotions to match what's expected of you.
Like trying to convince yourself you're actually happy.
Exactly. But surface acting is just slapping on the mask. And fake your smile is pure surface acting.
And that has to be exhausting, right?
Oh, the cognitive cost of surface acting is immense burnout. You are constantly holding two entirely contradictory states in your brain.
The pain you actually feel and the joy you have to project to be the star.
Right, which creates a massive amount of cognitive dissonance.
And I want to pause on the justification the text gives us for dealing with this exhaustion, because the lyric is, for a little while.
That part is so fascinating.
Right. I mean, I have to ask, is the fake smile actually temporary? Or is this just the lie we tell ourselves to justify the misery?
Oh, I'd argue it's entirely a self-deception.
Like, you tell yourself, I just have to fake it for this date or for this party or just until they fall in love with me.
Exactly. And the thematic analysis implies exactly that. It describes a profound tension created by this performative effort. We tell ourselves it's just for a little while, just to survive the immediate discomfort.
But then you get stuck in it.
Yes. A terrible paradox emerges here. The tension exists between wanting to be genuinely loved and realizing that the love you're currently receiving is based entirely on the performance.
Oh, wow. Because if they fall in love with the fake smile, they aren't falling in love with you at all.
Not at all. They're falling in love with the avatar you created.
That is terrifying.
It is. The love itself becomes contaminated by the performance that was required to extract it. If
Yeah.
you earn affection by being a star, then the affection is directed purely at the star.
So the person working so hard behind the scenes is still basically fundamentally unseen and completely unloved. It's like you've essentially built a prison out of your own success. You succeeded in getting them to like the mask, so now you can never, ever take the mask off.
Because if you do, you lose the affection.
Right, and that internal exhaustion, that burnout from the surface acting, it doesn't just stay quietly inside your head.
No, it inevitably bleeds outward.
Exactly. It bleeds into how the relationship physically manifests, which leads us to this really devastating realization in the next section.
Right, the aesthetic illusion. The text transitions into this exact outward manifestation with the lines, could look so good, yet be so fake.
Yeah, you really look good for that love you hate.
So could look so good points to appearing undeniably captivating on the outside.
But yet be so fake immediately undercuts it. It acknowledges that this external beauty is entirely superficial. It's basically an empty calorie.
The overall analysis highlights this as the thematic paradox. It's the profound disconnection between appearance and reality.
The aesthetic goal has been achieved, right? So like the person looks good.
The relationship looks picture perfect on the outside, but there is a complete void of authenticity. It's a beautifully constructed facade with absolutely nothing behind it.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, and I want to push back a little on the vocabulary being used here.
Okay, what do you mean?
Well, the text explicitly says, for that love you hate. Now, if this dynamic brings so much resentment and dissatisfaction, why is it even being categorized as love?
That's a really good question.
Right. Like, if you despise the connection, why not call it an obsession or a trap? Why grace it with the word love?
Well, that's really the crux of the modern relationship dilemma, isn't it? The text refers to this as grappling with the complexities of attraction.
But it's an attraction that feels awful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our source notes that this love is categorized by what it lacks rather than what it actually provides.
So we just use the word love because it's the only word we have.
Pretty much. It's often the only societal vocabulary we have for an intense, binding emotional connection, regardless of whether that connection is actually nourishing or entirely toxic.
So it's a linguistic trap as much as an emotional one. We just slap the label of love onto the intensity.
Exactly. And biologically, we confuse the two all the time.
Oh, really? How so?
When we look at the psychology of trauma bonding or toxic attachments, the brain's physiological response to anxiety, like the elevated heart rate, the hypervigilance, the adrenaline, is incredibly similar to the physiological response to romantic arousal.
Wait, so your brain literally can't tell the difference between being terrified and being turned on?
Basically, yes. The text's phrase, love you hate, perfectly encapsulates this phenomenon. You hate it consciously because it is unfulfilling and superficial.
But you are physically and emotionally bound to the intensity of it.
Right. Which makes the very next word in the text so incredibly heavy. Right after that love you hate, there's just the word, yeah.
It's just like, yeah.
The breakdown describes this as an acknowledgement of the situation. It's a profound sense of resignation.
It really sounds like absolute somatic defeat. Like, yes, the moment the rational brain just surrenders.
It knows the relationship is fake and exhausting, but it simply surrenders to the emotional reality of being trapped in it.
Because when you're confronted with a partner whose affection is unfulfilling, and you realize your own appeal is entirely insincere, what else can you do?
Exactly. Resignation isn't just a choice. It's practically the only logical psychological response left to you.
You are totally trapped in the aesthetic illusion. But, you know, human beings can't just exist in a state of undefended vulnerability when they're surrounded by resentment.
No, the psyche won't allow that.
Right. If the environment is toxic, the body's natural response is to build an immune defense. And in this text, that defense mechanism manifests as an incredibly rigid emotional shield.
And we see that structurally in the song. The repetition here mirrors the psychological reality of someone building a wall brick by brick.
We get that recurring chorus. Yeah, I don't really want to look at you. Look at you. Yeah, unless you really want me to.
Let's look at the mechanics of this. I don't really want to look. It implies a desperate reluctance to engage on any deeper level.
Because looking at you isn't just about physical sight, right? It's about the act of truly seeing or connecting with the other person.
Exactly. And then comes the ironclad condition. Unless you really want me to.
So the reciprocation isn't just, like, preferred. It is absolutely mandatory for survival at this point.
The analysis explicitly states that the act of looking here is a confrontation with feelings the singer wishes to avoid.
So the repetition of these lines is literally a figurative emotional shield.
Yes. It's a protective distance taken to avoid confronting the pain of insincerity. But let's look at how that actually works neurobiologically.
Okay, let's dig into that.
Eye contact is one of the most powerful triggers for the human nervous system.
I mean, that makes sense. Just think about it. Think about the last time you actively avoided making eye contact with someone.
It's usually because the situation is just too heavy, right?
Exactly. You know they are lying, or you're holding a secret yourself, and looking at them is just too much.
Right, because when there is trust, eye contact stimulates the vagus nerve and regulates the parasympathetic nervous system. It literally calms us down.
But when there is a lack of trust, when we suspect the other person is faking their smile,
That contact triggers the sympathetic nervous system. It triggers the fight or flight response.
wow. So the refusal to look at you is quite literally the nervous system trying to prevent a severe stress response.
That's exactly what it is.
So instead of just a shield, it's almost like an emotional autoimmune response.
That's a really powerful way to frame it.
The psyche has become so hypervigilant that it's attacking the very mechanism of connection looking at each other, just to prevent the possibility of being infected by more fake affection.
And the conditionality, the unless, is the demand signal. The text highlights this as a massive struggle between desire and self-preservation.
They really want the connection, but the fear of it not being mutual is just completely paralyzing. But I have to ask you, is this conditionality a sign of weakness? Or is it a vital survival tactic to avoid confronting that insincerity?
The text strongly implies it's entirely a survival tactic. It's born from an intense awareness of potential hurt.
Because true vulnerability becomes impossible when you suspect the other person is wearing a mask.
Exactly. If you drop your shield and open yourself up, and they are still performing, you will be emotionally decimated.
So you demand absolute proof of their desire before you risk any exposure yourself, unless you really want me to.
It's a complete Mexican standoff of the soul.
Nobody is willing to drop their weapon first. And the tragedy is, while both people are hiding behind these massive walls, demanding the other person prove their sincerity first.
The actual connection between them is just starving to death in the space between the walls.
It really is. But we have to ask ourselves, why is the immune system so hypervigilant in the first place?
Right, because you aren't born holding an emotional shield.
Exactly. That kind of intense, paralyzing conditionality doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's almost always the scar tissue of a past betrayal.
The psyche had to learn this defense mechanism somewhere.
Which bridges us perfectly to the next revelation in the text. Because the narrative takes this really sharp turn away from the present standoff and plunges right into a personal recollection.
It's where we encounter the phantom of perfection.
And the extreme danger of idealization. The text reads, "I once knew a love that was never there. She came from up above, but she didn't really care."
The interpretation in our source material here is incredibly stark. I once knew a love indicates experiencing what they believe to be a profound connection in the past.
But that was never there reveals the brutal truth, doesn't it? The love was a complete illusion.
Right. It lacked any genuine substance or presence.
And then she came from up above. That really implies the subject was viewed as ideal, celestial, just completely perfect.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's the psychological concept of the halo effect taken to its absolute extreme.
Okay, unpack that for me.
The thematic analysis draws out this fascinating dichotomy between the angelic or transcendent allure of the person and the profound emotional void of their actual behavior.
Ah, so they look like an angel but gave nothing back.
Exactly. The text portrays this past love as something highly promising, yet ultimately entirely unfulfilled. It captures the essence of longing for something that existed purely in fantasy.
It's the danger of projecting our own unmet needs onto a blank canvas.
Yes, we do it all the time.
Like you see someone, you are attracted to their aesthetic,
Yeah.
and your brain just fills in the rest of their personality with all the traits you desperately want them to have.
They become an angel from up above without having to actually do anything to earn it.
Right. We fall in love with the potential of a person rather than the reality of who they actually are. I love this analogy. It's like a beautiful mirage in a desert.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
It promises salvation to someone who is literally dying of thirst, but when you reach out, it's just sand. It was never there. We are literally in love with a phantom.
And when the reality of that person finally breaks through the fantasy, the betrayal is uniquely devastating.
Because it shatters the whole world you built.
Exactly. And our source points out the specific nature of this betrayal. The lyric is, "But she didn't really care." Notice that it doesn't say she was cruel or malicious or abusive.
She was just indifferent.
Just indifferent.
And somehow, indifference is so much worse, isn't it?
It really is.
If someone is actively angry with you, at least they are acknowledging your existence. Their anger implies that you matter enough to them to elicit a strong emotion.
But total apathy. Indifference completely negates your very existence.
Wow. Yeah, that's heavy.
And the text notes that this specific dynamic being ignored by someone you have idealized as perfect leaves the singer grappling with deep feelings of inadequacy and disillusionment.
Because if an angel comes down from heaven and doesn't care about you, the psychological reflex is to assume there must be something fundamentally wrong with you.
Right. You internalize the rejection as absolute proof of your own lack of worth.
You put them on a pedestal that you built entirely in your own mind. And when they look down at you from that pedestal with total blankness, it just crushes you.
And this is exactly where the scar tissue comes from.
The disillusionment of that past phantom directly informs the paralyzing dynamic of their present.
Exactly. They realize the past was just a projection, and the present is a performative facade.
Which just leaves the psyche in a state of profound paralysis. Realizing you've been chasing mirages and performing for an audience that doesn't care. I mean, you reach a point of absolute emotional exhaustion.
And that exhaustion strips away even the ability to articulate the pain.
Which leads us into this really heavy section of the song. The realization that they are trapped in this cycle leads to an admission of complicity.
Right. The lyrics go, "I can't find the words to explain how I feel. You've already dealt the cards, but I already knew the deal."
Let's examine the first half of that. I can't find the words to explain how I feel. We're looking at a state of near total shutdown here.
But we have to ask why. The singer has been quite articulate about the mechanics of this dynamic up to this point.
Right. They've eloquently described the masks, the aesthetic illusions, the angelic phantoms. So why the sudden verbal paralysis?
Well, in trauma psychology, there's a phenomenon called alexithymia.
Well, alexithymia, okay.
Yeah, it's a subclinical inability to identify and describe emotions experienced by oneself. Under extreme, prolonged emotional load, the brain's language centers can effectively shut down.
So when the analysis points out that describing the true emotional state is a challenge here, it's not just a lack of vocabulary.
Exactly. It's the cognitive realization that explanation is entirely futile.
Because the game is already in motion. You've already dealt the cards.
It implies a situation that is set in stone, where choices have been completely removed.
It's a very passive position to take, honestly. It sounds like a total surrender of agency. Like, oh, well, the cards are dealt.
It does sound like victimization, initially. But that lack of agency is violently undercut by the very next line.
But I already knew the deal. And this is where I have to push back heavily on any kind of victim narrative we might be tempted to apply here.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if the singer explicitly admits, I already knew the deal, then they are fully complicit.
They knew exactly what was happening.
Right. They aren't a victim of a rigged game. They walked into the room, saw the dealer stacking the deck, pulled out a chair, and placed a bet anyway.
You cannot cry foul when you lose a game you knew was rigged from the very moment you sat down.
Exactly. That is a highly critical point, and the text's analysis fully supports it.
This is the absolute tragedy of conscious self-sabotage. The thematic document discusses the massive inner turmoil that arises not just from being hurt, but from the guilt of your own complicity.
Entering into a dynamic, fully aware that it is superficial or doomed, is a terrifying psychological reality.
It really is.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, why do we do it? Why does the human mind sit down at a table knowing it's going to be bankrupted emotionally?
Well, the concept of the sunk cost fallacy plays a role, certainly. But it's also about choosing a known pain over an unknown void.
Oof. A known pain over an unknown void.
The text suggests we do this to satisfy a temporary longing. We accept the beautifully wrapped empty box because holding the shiny paper feels marginally better than holding nothing at all.
So the conscious complicity, knowing the deal, is just the price of admission for the illusion of connection.
Exactly. We'd rather be emotionally starving in the presence of someone else than starving alone.
But the human brain can only tolerate that level of cognitive dissonance and deprivation for so long.
Right, it can't last forever.
When you are trapped in a rigged game, suffocating under the weight of your own complicity and your own fake smiles, the pressure builds.
And the mind will naturally, desperately search for an escape hatch.
Which brings us to the profound contradiction at the climax of the text. It explores the violent push and pull between escapism and the intoxicating high of the connection.
The final passages are really powerful. Sometimes I dream I'm someone else and don't know why. Because every time I look at you, I want to kiss the sky.
Sometimes I dream I'm someone else. This isn't just wishing for a different relationship or a different circumstance. This is visualizing an alternate identity entirely.
And the text points out that the reason for these thoughts eludes them and don't know why.
But the thematic analysis unpacks exactly why, doesn't it?
Yes, it implies a yearning for total transformation. A release from the current emotional turmoil requires an obliteration of the current self.
Because the identity they currently inhabit has been completely shaped and battered by these failing performative relationships.
Dreaming of being someone else is an expression of ego death. It's the desire to kill the version of yourself that sat down at the rigged card table in the first place.
It's the ultimate fantasy of the trapped mind, just hitting the hard reset button on your own soul. You want to escape the self that is complicit in the pain.
But then, the text swings the pendulum completely to the opposite extreme in the very next breath.
Because every time I look at you, I want to kiss the sky.
What's fascinating here is that this contradiction is the absolute core of the song's tragedy.
Kiss the Sky is defined in our breakdown as a fleeting glimpse of pure joy, freedom, and hope.
It represents an intense, transcendent, euphoric feeling. But the text is very careful to contextualize this.
Right. This joy is fundamentally sabotaged by the complexity of the toxic relationship.
Yes.
So what does this all mean? How do we reconcile this? I want to ask you, the listener, and I want to ask you as the expert.
Okay, lay it on me.
How is it neurobiologically or psychologically possible that the exact same person who drives you to want to obliterate your own identity is also the exact same person who makes you feel the ultimate euphoric high?
It's a huge paradox.
How can the poison and the cure be the exact same thing?
It speaks directly to the mechanics of intermittent reinforcement, which is one of the most powerful psychological conditioning tools in existence.
Okay, tell me more about that.
When a reward, in this case, emotional connection or euphoria, is delivered unpredictably and inconsistently, it creates a much stronger, more obsessive behavioral response than a reward that is delivered consistently.
Oh, it's the slot machine effect.
Exactly.
If the machine pays out every single time you pull the lever, it's boring. You can easily just walk away.
But if it pays out just often enough to keep you hoping, but rarely enough to keep you desperate, you will pull that lever until you lose your house.
Wow. So in the darkness of the performative masks, the superficiality, and all those emotional shields, there are these blinding flashes of genuine euphoria.
These moments where they kiss the sky. And the joy is real in that isolated moment, even if the foundation of the relationship is totally fake.
Because the biochemical spike of dopamine and adrenaline during that high is so incredibly powerful.
It temporarily overrides the intellect that knew the deal.
It's a literal addiction cycle. You suffer through the withdrawals, you hate the substance, you despise the version of yourself that is addicted to it. You dream of being someone else who is clean.
But the moment you get a hit, the moment you look at you, all that rational thought just evaporates. You just want the high.
And the tragic, inevitable conclusion drawn from our source material is that the euphoric moment cannot last.
It is immediately swallowed up again by the defense mechanisms. The analysis points out that structurally, the song ends by cyclically returning to the conditional chorus.
The shield slams right back down.
Yeah.
Unless you really want me to.
Yes. The cyclical repetition emphasizes that the escape is only ever temporary.
Because they never really get away.
No. The expert analysis notes that the profound longing for connection is always, ultimately, tempered by the hyper-vigilant awareness of potential hurt.
They get a fleeting glimpse of the sky, they feel the intense desire to transcend, and then the autoimmune response kicks right back in.
They never truly escape. The longing for the high always pulls them right back into the protective, agonizing conditionality of the relationship.
The shield protects them from being destroyed by the fall, but it also physically prevents them from ever actually kissing the sky.
They are just eternally trapped in the suffocating space between the wall and the sky.
Thus, as the text concludes, this isn't just a song. It encapsulates a highly detailed, profoundly disturbing examination of the masks we wear.
And the toxic dynamics we label as love.
Right. It's the inescapable inner turmoil that arises from a closed loop of desire and self-preservation.
It really is a masterpiece of psychological articulation.
Wow. Let's pull back for a second and look at the massive emotional architecture we just mapped out in aeur's Lustral.
It's a lot to take in.
We started by diagnosing the sheer metabolic exhaustion of the performative self. The cognitive dissonance of working so hard to be a star while wearing a fake smile just to be palatable.
We examine how that internal burnout bleeds into the aesthetic illusion, leaving us trapped in a connection that looks perfect but is entirely hollow.
A love that triggers the same neurological pathways as hate.
From there, we looked at the emotional autoimmune response, the shields we build.
The refusal to engage in vulnerable eye contact, and the strict survivalist conditionality of demanding proof of love before offering it.
We untacked the source of that hypervigilance, too. The scars of the past, the danger of the halo effect, idealizing a phantom as an angel from up above, only to have our internal compass shattered by their complete indifference.
We sat at the rigged card table, confronting the agonizing reality of our own complicity and the sunk cost fallacy.
And finally, we face that paralyzing, addictive tug-of-war between the desperate need to escape our own identity and the intoxicating, intermittent reinforcement of the very connection that is destroying us.
It is a rigorously detailed map of human emotional turmoil.
It absolutely is.
And I want to turn this directly back to you listening, because spending time doing a deep dive into a text like this is completely pointless unless we use it as a mirror for our own behavior.
That's a great point. You have to apply it.
I want you to actively audit your own relationships right now. Romantic, platonic, professional. Are you engaging in surface acting?
Are you putting on a fake smile to be that star for someone else?
Are you exhausting your own nervous system trying to curate an identity that will earn conditional affection?
And to push that introspection a layer deeper, consider the toxic connections you might be maintaining. Are you confusing the anxiety of a trauma bond with love?
Are you sitting at a rigged table just for those unpredictable, fleeting dopamine hits, those brief moments where you feel like you might kiss the sky while actively sacrificing your long-term authenticity?
Identifying the mask is the required first step to taking it off.
But that brings us to one final, highly provocative thought that we want to leave you with today. Something to really chew on long after this audio stops playing.
If we synthesize the deepest psychological implications of this text, there is a haunting question about the nature of identity itself.
Yeah, this part is really chilling.
The lyrics suggest, particularly in the desperate desire to dream I'm someone else, that our core identities are actively physically shaped by the trauma of our failing relationships.
The mask we wear to survive the conditional love doesn't just sit on top of the skin.
Right. Over time, the mask eventually melds with the face beneath it.
So the ultimate question becomes, if you spend years or decades wearing a performative mask to survive a rigged game of conditional love, what happens when you finally find a safe place and try to take the mask off?
Will you even recognize the person underneath? Or will that genuine, uncurated version of you be a complete stranger?
Will the real you be the phantom? That is a terrifying, vital question to ask yourself.
It really is.
We started today talking about how diagnosing human relationships isn't like looking at a clean X-ray of a broken bone. It's muddy, complicated waters.
Very muddy.
But I think what we've discovered is that sometimes you have to wade deep into the mud, into the uncomfortable truths of your own complicity to figure out what's real and what's just a reflection on the surface.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for wading into the deep end with us today. Keep questioning the masks you wear, keep fighting for the real connections, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.